Hello, I'm Micah Smith from Denver 7, and welcome to Denver Decides. This community partnership is dedicated to accessible and transparent elections. The partnership includes the League of Women Voters of Denver, Inter-Neighborhood Cooperation, and is presented by Denver 8 TV. Our mission today is to present a candidate forum in anticipation of the general election coming up on Tuesday, November 3rd. Among other offices, the election includes the candidates vying to represent constituents in Colorado State Senate District 33. District 33 is located in central east and far northeast Denver. Our format is a pretty standard one. We will begin with opening statements that will be followed by rounds of questions that have been submitted by the organizers of the forum. Since we do have a time limit, we may not be able to get to all of these submitted questions. All of the candidates will answer all questions. Their responses will be timed. So let's begin by meeting the candidates vying to represent Colorado State Senate District 33 as your next state senator. The candidates are standing left to right, facing the audience in the order that their names will appear on the November ballot. So beginning at my right, James Coleman, and on my left is Jerry Burton. Welcome, both of you, to this forum. And one more note to the candidates on behalf of our viewers. We sincerely urge you to be honest, direct, and forthright to help the voters distinguish one candidate from another. We will begin with 1-minute opening statements from each candidate. We proceed in ballot order with these statements. So, once again, starting at my right, James Coleman will begin with your opening statement.
All right. Am I allowed to take this off? Awesome. Hey, everybody. My name is James Coleman. I'm the current state representative for House District 7, which is represented in far northeast Denver, as you heard. I've been blessed to serve House District 7 for the last 4 years, and I'm now a candidate for Senate District 33, which is from the airport all the way down to 5 Points, Park Hill, Montbello, the East Side, Whittier, Cole, everywhere I've known because I grew up here. Blessed to represent the folks who helped make me who I am today. I'm a proud father of 2 children, James and Naomi, who are in 4th grade, about to turn 10, and my wife Shayna, she and I have been together for now 19 years, since 8th grade, and we're just blessed to be able to have a family in our community, be successful, but also find a way to give back, and this has been a blessing for me to represent you. Looking forward to continuing great work in State Senate, and I'm so grateful that I have a great opponent like Jerry Burton who keeps me on my toes, and I'm looking forward to a great conversation this evening. Thank you for your support.
And now an opening statement from Jerry Burton.
Well, my name is Jerry Burton. I am an activist. I am a Marine Corps veteran, and I'm also a father of 2, one beautiful, handsome son and a beautiful daughter. I got into this because there's some things that I feel that need to be changed, and I'm here to serve. I look forward to serving District 33 as my opponent, as he stated. Yes, it's 5 Points. Downtown area, Swanson, Cole, Whitaker, Montbello, the new Central Park neighborhood, which is once known as Stapleton, Montbello, and DIA and Highland Ranch. So I'm looking forward to doing this, and my opponent is pretty good. I got nothing bad to say about him. Thank you.
Now, our first question for the candidates, and each candidate will have 1 minute to answer. We will start in reverse order from the opening statements, so we will begin with Jerry Burton. Jerry, in some neighborhoods, property taxes have increased as much as 25% or more, in some cases, possibly squeezing original residents out of their homes. Will the possible repeal of Gallagher lead to even more acceleration of gentrification of Denver?
Well, what needs to be done is the fact that we need rent control, we need proper tax control. I feel that if elected, I wanted to work on that as far as bringing it down. I think everybody should be able to live in an area that they chooses, but not be robbed of all the money they are making. Also, we can do better than this, and we must do better than this in order to bring Denver together. That's in every neighborhood. The rent is just outrageous. We have too many homeless people out here that need to be rectified, and this can also lead to people losing their housing, ownership, and everything of that nature. So we need to do better, and if I am elected, I will bring forth some measures to rectify that.
Let's turn to James Coleman for his answer to that question.
Micah, thank you so much for that question. So in 1982, the Gallagher Amendment was voted on as a ballot initiative by the voters. And ultimately what it has done, even if it had unintended consequences, is it's caused us to have less money at local levels across the state of Colorado, in particular here in Denver, for things like education in schools, for public safety like our law enforcement and also our firefighters, folks who are working to protect and serve and also provide resources for us. So what this ultimately does is it freezes both the assessment rate and the property tax rate for local residents so that it doesn't keep going down. That's the money that we keep losing because of the fact that we don't have an equal assessment rate for both residential and commercial property. So for that, I think it's important that we look at ways where we can continue to increase funding and also have more funding at the state level for us to be able to pay for things like education, pay our teachers, which of course we so badly need right now. I know because I got 2 kids in school. So I support the repeal of the Gallagher Amendment.
Now our next question for the candidates, and we will begin with you, James. When you think of your constituents, which comes first to mind, taxpayer or citizen?
Great question. When I think of my constituents, I don't call them constituents, I call them family. I call them neighbors. I think about my grandmother, Micah. That's a great question. I see them as folks who we collectively make decisions. Look, I don't have all the answers, right? But I know I'm in a position to go and execute. I think what matters to me is the people in our community have a leader, and leadership looks like transparency. It looks like being available and always at community events in public and not hiding, which we sometimes see folks do who are in elected office. But it also looks like compassion, and it's being able to understand. And so I have to have conversations with folks. I got to be transparent. And for me, I think it's really important that I represent those folks because I don't see them as taxpayers. I see them as real human beings, as people who deserve to be represented, making sure that their kids can go to school, they can have jobs, they can have health care, they can have housing. All those things are super important for me, and I'm super grateful to be able to represent not taxpayers, but my family.
Jerry, your opportunity to answer that question.
Well, I don't look at them as a taxpayer at all. I look at them as resident of a city that we all need to come together and make this city the best that it can be. Also, we need to stop looking and designing things to separate us. And that's something that have been going on not only in Denver, but across the United States ever since it was incepted. We need to change that narrative. And we need to listen to the people that is in our district and try to implement what they want us to implement, because that's why they elected us. And as long as we do that, we're good to go. But we can't make everybody happy. But I'll tell you like this, if I'm elected, I am going to listen to the resident. I don't see them as taxpayer, because everyone in the world is a taxpayer.
And Jerry, you will be the first to answer this question. Please describe how the state should deal with the impact of the pandemic on the state budget.
Oh, wow, now that's a good question. The way they should have done with it from the get-go is to make sure that everyone, including our unhoused neighbor, have either a hotel room or some place to go to where we could have stopped this pandemic much sooner than what we are doing it. Also, we need to set up a place to where not only during the pandemic, but this should have been going on the whole time for the last 12 years. Because this is not the only thing that's coming down the pipe. There's other things that are coming down as well. So the state should be able to put money where they could take and make sure that everybody is housed and have a place they can call their own so that this does not kick up again. I just think that is the best approach to solving this pandemic.
And now, James, your answer to that question.
Thank you for the question, Micah. You know, I served this year in the legislature, in the House, during the time when COVID-19 hit. And when we had COVID-19 hit, there was a lot of concern about whether or not we were going to have the funding to be able to provide funding for schools, funding for housing, so many different things, right? So with this conversation, how we deal with it financially is we look at where we're spending money right now at the state level and figure out if we're spending it responsibly by doing an audit. And if we're not spending money responsibly, like the way we're not right now in the Department of Corrections, we can repurpose those funds to places where people need help, such as education, such as housing. You know, it's also passing good legislation, like some of my colleagues and I did, to figure out ways where we can provide additional support and services for housing, support for education, support for food and family services. So we can do these things. And here's the one last thing I'll say about that. It's a shame that it took COVID-19 for us to all of a sudden find the money to do these things. We got to be better, because the things that are impacting Senate District 33 and House District 7, where I represent, have always been problematic. They're just now exacerbated, and we owe it to them to do better.
Now let's continue with our questions for the candidates vying for the state Senate seat from District 33. James, you will answer first. Constituents have said they feel their representatives at the state capitol aren't listening to them. How will you be different?
Thank you so much, Micah, for that question. How will I be different? I will say this with all humility. If you're going to be in public office, you have to listen. Listening is a conversation. If you're not available to have a conversation, if you don't know how to have a conversation, if you don't know that even if you disagree with somebody, you don't have to be disagreeable, and you have to have a conversation with folks who may not agree with everything that you think is right, and vice versa, then you should not be in leadership. For me, I served and had at least 20 online town halls during the time of COVID-19 because I wanted to make sure I'm hearing from folks. We do convos with Coleman every other week on Tuesday to make sure that I'm hearing from folks and bringing information to the community. So what I intend to do is not start doing that. I intend to continue being available, communicating with folks, because how am I going to lead if I don't know what the issues people in my community are dealing with? And we got to make sure that we not only listen, but we go execute and make sure life is better for them on the back end.
Now, Jerry, your answer to that question.
Well, a good leader is a person that listens. And I will have an open door policy. You can call me at home when I'm off the clock. I am here to listen, to get done what the resident of Denver in District 33 want me to do. And the only way that we'll be able to do that is by talking to me, by calling me, by letting me know what is your desire, how you want District 33 to be looked at. But other than that, we have to. A good leader, you got to listen. I mean, and if you don't listen, trust me, I tell everybody in a minute, vote me out. Vote the person out that's in there if they're not listening to what you want them to do. Because until we change this, we ain't going to change nothing. Thank you.
Next question from our sponsoring partners, and we begin with Jerry Burton. What kinds of policies, if any, will you pursue to promote social and racial justice in our community?
Wow. I just got through talking about this today at DHO. You know, the thing about it, policies that need to be changed. We need, throughout Denver in the city, we have a lot of problems going on. It's not just with homelessness. It's not just with racial equity and all that. We have a major problem here. And the best way to implement this is to change. Even we have to take and redesign the Denver Constitution. We need to change that. Because until we look at each other as equal and not as racial or financial concern, we are going to continue to have this problem. So the first thing I would do is trying to make sure that everybody in my district is respecting everybody and try to pass that on through the assembly. So we got to change, and the best thing to do is implement some changes.
James Coleman, your answer to that question.
Thank you for the question, Micah. Racial justice and changing the way things are right now are not just about police brutality. It looks like eliminating recidivism in our prisons, and we treat people like human beings when they come out and give them a job and give them a place to live so they don't end up homeless, and give them mental and physical health supports. It looks like ending youth violence in a district where we thrive and we love each other, but unfortunately we've had over 30 kids either shot or killed in our district in the past 2 months. By providing opportunities for them, we can figure out a way to eliminate that, such as apprenticeships and internships, things for them to be able to do where they can have some fun but also make some money and not be in trouble. It looks like an actual investment into the black community that we have not seen in the last 400 years in this country, and in particular here in Colorado. It looks like capital investment into organizations. It looks like Senate Bill 217, police accountability, the first police accountability bill in the country, and only one of 6 has been passed thus far. So we did that, but we got more work to do moving forward.
Now the next question for our candidates. James, you will begin the answers for this round. Is democracy dying? Elaborate.
Democracy is dying, but democracy is not dead. And depending on how we act as leaders, we will see what happens with democracy. We talked about democracy, and democracy is people actually being able to participate. Democracy does not look like Terrence Roberts and the other activists who were arrested because they were protesting for Elijah McClain, and the people who killed Elijah McClain still haven't been charged. But they're sitting in jail cells and had to bail out this week. Those are the kinds of things that make people not want to get involved in protests or vote. So for us, we have to do better. We have to lead. We have to show that that is not okay. Because if we don't, people are going to see that if they get involved, they can go to jail, or if they vote, it doesn't matter. Trust me when I say that it matters, because if it wasn't for you, I wouldn't be here for the last 4 years serving, and I'm grateful that you allowed me to do so.
Jerry, your answer to that question.
Well, democracy is dead. It never really was democracy. Anytime that you can take in a whole person and count them as 1/5, that's not democracy. Democracy is that we all have a say. We participate. Democracy is that when one is suffering, we all suffer. Democracy, to me, is that when you can take the very person and build a country on it and not give those people just due on all the work that their ancestors have done, then democracy is dead. Until they do that, democracy will continue to be dead. And we need to change that, because even in some of these protests that they have been doing, police antagonize. See, me being a Marine, I trained as a police riot enforcement. And you have to have tough skin. And if you don't have tough skin, then you have
Thank you, Jerry. Your time is up.
Oh, my bad. I forgot about that.
Thank you both for your answers during that round. Our next round will be what we call the lightning round. Our candidates will be asked to answer questions I read with a simple yes, no, or pass. It goes quickly, so listen closely. And remember, your answer can only be yes, no, or pass. We will go in left to right order as the candidates face the camera. James, then Jerry. James, do you think the current state house is listening to its constituents?
Yes.
I would say no.
Do you or any family member own a licensed firearm?
Yes.
No.
Does life begin at conception?
No. Life begins.
Yes or no?
Ooh, yes.
Have you recently done any volunteer work in your neighborhood or elsewhere in the city?
Yes.
Yes.
These forums will be on replay through Election Day. For future viewing audiences, we are recording this in late September. Do you think kids should be in school buildings right now?
No.
I'll have to say no.
Do you believe that undocumented workers contribute positively to Colorado's economy?
Yes.
Yes.
Have you ever missed the opportunity to vote in a local, regional, or national election?
No.
Yes.
Do you currently own or do you plan to own an electric car?
Yes.
No.
House members are paid a salary of just over $40,000 per year. Was the salary and benefits what attracted you to run for office?
No.
No.
Marijuana has been legal in Colorado for nearly 8 years. Have you personally consumed some of the products available in our state?
No.
No.
For this election, will you use the U.S. Postal Service to mail your ballot?
No.
Yes.
Okay. This is the last question for the lightning round. Was Ronald Reagan right when he said that, quote, the 9 most terrifying words in the English language are, I'm from the government and I'm here to help?
No.
No.
All right. Thank you both for your quick answers. That was a great job. And for the next few rounds of questioning, it's going to be the candidates' turn to ask the questions of one another. Each of you will ask your opponent a question, and hopefully they will have an answer for you. We will reverse the ballot order and begin with Jerry Burton. Jerry, you will ask James a question, and James, you will have 1 minute to answer. Jerry.
Wow. I don't even know what they're asking. James, you know, we have talked many times together, just sitting around chopping it up. Mm-hmm. The one thing I would like to ask you is this. As a child, me growing up, everything was free. I could go to the gym, play basketball, do arts and crafts, the whole 9 yards. Do you feel that since we are in the 21st century, should we return back to having the recreational free and the government continue to pay for those services so that our teenagers can participate and maybe won't have so much idle time?
Thank you for your question, Jerry. I absolutely think that those resources and programs should be free for our kids, because right now there are kids, unfortunately, in our community who don't have access to that. I'm not going to name his name, but I got a chance to visit a young man at his home last week who unfortunately lost his uncle to gun violence, lives in the community. But then also, because of that, he decided he was going to run away from home. He decided he was going to leave home in the middle of the night. He's my kid's age. When I asked him what is it that he wants to do, he said, I wanted to commit suicide. And that's not the kind of answer I was expecting, but that's what he told me. By the time the conversation was over, I said, what is it that you can do constructively and what can I help you with? And he said, I wish that I had access to sports programs in my rec center. So right there, I made a phone call to my boy Dane Washington. Shout out to Dane, the Pirates, Park Hill, Skyland. And we were able to get this young man an opportunity, but he's still struggling. And the fight is not over for him or for any of our kids. And I absolutely agree, if Jerry does as well, that we need to figure out ways to provide opportunities for our youth especially.
Now, James, it's your turn to ask a question of Jerry.
Thank you. Thank you, Micah. Jerry, I would like to ask you, what is your vision for ending homelessness in the city and county of Denver?
Well, my vision for ending homelessness is I want to talk to the developers. I want to talk to the owners of a property that are rented out. I want to talk to them about why it is so important and for Denver economically to how the advantages of not having people living on the streets in the city of Denver. That's one way. Secondly, I would like to see if we can get developers to build more places where people can rent according to their income. In the area where I work at, we got like 4 luxury apartment complexes down there. The thing about it, we can live down the street from you. We can live in the back of you, across the street, but we can't live in the same apartment building that you live in. And we can subsidize some of those apartments to help our unhoused neighbors.
Thank you.
Now, Jerry, another question from you for James.
Wow. Well, what would you do to end homelessness?
Thank you for the question, Jerry. When I met Jerry, he and I became really good friends to the point where he would even say, hey, man, you need to come down to Denver Homeless Out Loud and help me serve some of these meals. And I think the reason why that's so important, why everybody should, is because you got to see how people are living in order to understand the things they're going through and how important it is to change their lives. And so what I would do is I would continue to work with folks like Jerry who have overcome homelessness, who have figured out ways to better his life, who understands what it's like. We've already begun doing that work with the city and county of Denver, but I believe in his vision personally. And so I would invest in people like Jerry Burton, who have visions for ending homelessness and a plan and have actually done it in the past, instead of people who continue to get opportunities even though they don't represent our communities. And quite frankly, I don't think we're going to see the results we think we're going to see in a positive sense. So I think we need to continue to invest in folks like Jerry Burton, who have ideas and plans to end homelessness, provide workforce development, housing, and get people back under their feet.
James, your turn to ask Jerry another question. And Jerry, you will have 1 minute to answer.
Jerry, I would love to know how you feel we as an African American community can figure out ways to have wealth, generate wealth within our communities.
Well, one, you can't tell no white man your idea, for once. And I'm not saying that to be prejudiced or anything. I'm just saying it because it's the truth. What we have to do, we have to come together. And we got to start our own banking system. We got to start our own. We have more people with master's degrees, but we can't get the funding to start our own businesses that will take our people to the next level. Because why? Because the way the establishment is set up. The establishment is set up for us to fail, for us to not succeed in many ways. And so until we can get us to come together as black people and people of color, until we do that, we are always going to be at the bottom of the totem pole.
Thank you, Jerry and James, for your answers during that round of questioning. And that brings us to the end of our Q&A segment, and we now move to closing statements. Each candidate will have a minute for a closing statement, and we will reverse the order of the opening statements, which means we will begin with Jerry Burton. Mr. Burton, you have 1 minute for your closing statement.
Well, thank you. It's like this. It's time for a change here in Denver. As a matter of fact, it's time for a change in America. And the only way that we can do that is by putting people in there that are just like you. That means the masses. We have no business letting 98%ers run this country It's time for a change. It's time for the money to trickle up, not trickle down. It's time for everything to be trickled up. Because look at it this way. The one thing that this pandemic has told us, it doesn't matter how much money you have. If you can't buy nothing, what good is it? If you can't do anything with it, what good is it? So what I'm just trying to tell you is this: vote for me, but at the same time, you can vote for James too, because I feel that either one of us can get the job done. So there'll be no love lost, and y'all take care.
And now a closing statement from James Coleman.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Micah. First off, Jerry, I want to say thank you for taking the time to debate, to have this conversation, and for running, because that is what democracy is all about, showing folks that they can step up and have a voice. And also thank you for your service in the military. I know you talked about that briefly, but that's a big commitment. Listen, I'm running again to be the next state senator of Senate District 33, and I've been blessed to serve House District 7. We can't do this work without you. It takes a community effort. In times we're dealing with right now with COVID-19, we're living in the era of George Floyd and Elijah McClain and Devon Bailey and even Breonna Taylor, who we just found out that the folks who killed her are being let off the hook. We got to do a better job of loving each other, but also we got to do a better job of having policy that is passed and implemented and makes an impact in people's lives. And that's what I look forward to doing in the next 4 years. Lastly, I want to make sure I clear this up, not because I disagree with my statement, but I want to make it clear that I believe that women should be able to do whatever they choose with their body, because that is their choice. So thank you for having an opportunity to share with you tonight. Love you guys, and I ask for your support for Senate District 33.
Thank you, James and Jerry, for participating in this forum, and thank you to our Denver Decides partners, which include Inter-Neighborhood Cooperation and the League of Women Voters of Denver. Denver Decides is presented by Denver 18. Remember, Election Day is Tuesday, November 3rd. Make sure your voice is heard. Be sure you are registered, and be sure to vote. For complete election information online, go to denverdecides.org. I'm Micah Smith from Denver 7. Thanks for joining us.